On Those Were the Days today, we'd like to speak with Josephine Bursch and Gladys Mosely, and want to welcome you people to the program today. And how are you?
Thank you. Fine.
Fine.
Well, Josephine, perhaps first of all you could tell us a little about yourself and about your parents and where you were born at.
My dad was born in 1981, and they were married in 1911. I was born in Bursch, South Dakota. I had one brother that was born before me, and there was 2 sisters and 3 brothers in my family, so there's 6 of us all together. We lived on a ranch. I went to school at the Ridgeway School. There was about 30 kids there, and the first year I learned absolutely nothing.
Was there any reason for that?
Well, I think there were just too many kids for one teacher to take care of. But we had a lot of fun in our later years. There was enough kids that we could play baseball. There was a team too. So we played baseball at recess. Yeah, I don't know what else you want to know.
Josephine, what year were you born?
1914.
1914. And where did your folks originally come from, your mother and your dad?
My dad was born in Central City, South Dakota, and my mother was born in Canyon, Texas. And my mother's folks moved to Bursch area when she was about 16. And my dad then moved on the homestead, or on the place that we grew up, in 1904. And then he later got married, and that's where they spent their life. He was in partnership with another brother.
Were they farmers?
No, ranch.
Ranchers?
They had cattle for a long, long time, and then they went into the sheep business. So, and then in 1948, I think, they retired and went to Bursch, where they spent the remainder of their lives.
And you mentioned that you went to the Ridgeway School.
Yes.
Yeah, where exactly is that at?
Well, it's about 35 miles south of Ekalaka, wouldn't you say, Gladys?
Down in like the bell tower country? Or?
It's on beyond the bell tower.
Beyond that?
Yes.
15 miles or more.
It's kind of down in no man's land down there.
Oh, there's a lot of good people there.
Sure are. It's kind of hard to get to.
Well, there's a gravel road now, so it isn't all that difficult to get to now.
Well, back in the early days, then, Bursch, was that your main place to go shopping?
That's where we went. I didn't hardly ever went to Ekalaka until after I was married and moved where we lived. But we went to Bursch, and I remember my dad taking teams and wagons in the fall and bringing back a load of the groceries.
Well, Bursch, that was quite a thriving community all along.
Yes, it was. And that's where our livestock went to be sold.
So often there'd be 5 or 6 freight wagons all go at once and bring home the winter's groceries and things.
Well, now, Gladys, you grew up in that same neighborhood, right?
That's right.
And where were your folks from?
Well, my dad came up from Texas. He and mother, both. He came up in 1906 and worked on a ranch one summer. And then he left a girlfriend behind and got lonesome, went back to Texas and got married. And in 1908 he came back, and then he was old enough to homestead. And he took a homestead there on Box Elder. And that's where we grew up. And I went to the same school that Josephine did.
Now, you lived just a few miles apart down there.
Yeah, 4 or 5 miles.
And then you went to school together. So you remember quite a few times back in the grade school days down to Ridgeway School?
Oh, that's right.
You had good times down there?
That's right. I later taught there, several years later, but and we still had 25 kids the winter I taught there in 1930.
Well, you were there in 1930.
That's when I taught there.
When you taught. Well, where did you go to school then to get your teacher's certificate? Or?
Well, I went to high school in Ekalaka, and then I went to Dillon. Billings still hadn't started the Eastern Montana College. It was in the process of being built. I came to Baker about my second trip to Baker to catch the train to Dillon in 1927, and in the spring, in March. And in and stayed until August. 6 months of building. And then came home and started teaching in the fall of 27.
Where was your first school at then?
Chimney Rock. It was in the mountains east of the Box Elder Creek, east of our home, between there and Camp Crook. I taught Chimney Rock School. I had 17 pupils.
Back in those first years of teaching, what was the pay? About $75 a month? And
I got 100.
Oh, you got 100. That was high for those days, wasn't it?
I was pretty pleased. Yes, wages were, we thought, good then. But we only had 7 months school. And then the next year I had an 8-month school. I taught Hawks home school over on Box Elder. And then I taught down by Bell Tower. And then I taught the home school, the Ridgeway School.
We had a lot of country dances in our schoolhouse. There would be a fellow that could chord on the piano, and that was about our music, but we learned to dance.
Violin.
Yes, there would be a violin.
Well, we had to have school dances to provide new maps and things for the schools.
Yeah.
That was your source of income, huh? Well, the schoolhouse, that was kind of a community gathering place anyway, wasn't it?
Yes. Had church once a month usually, and all denominations went. There was a family there that were Catholic, but she wanted her children to not grow up not knowing anything about church. And so they came to our churches and Sunday school things. And it was election place.
And then you had other social get-togethers, card parties, and things of this nature. Well, Josephine, where did you meet your husband at?
Oh, well, we grew up together.
You grew up together?
Yes, and then I went to Belfouche High School, but we were going together before I even started high school. So I knew him all my life.
And when you were going to high school, you didn't commute back and forth every day, did you?
Oh, no, I worked for my board when I went to high school.
You lived in a boarding house, kind of?
No, I lived with a family that had a couple of kids, and I babysat, cooked, whatever there was to do.
Did the ironing and a little of everything?
Everything, yes, I did. And I had very little time outside of school, so my sister and I were companions when she started school. So, and we didn't have the money to go to shows and one thing and another, so.
You mainly work and go to school?
I worked and go to school. And then on Sundays we'd go for long walks. But it was enjoyable.
Now, what was your husband's name?
Ellis.
Ellis?
Bursch.
And what did he do then?
He was a rancher.
And where was that at?
Well, he worked when their mother died when he was about 11. So he has worked on different ranches all his life, and he could tell some real experiences that he had.
And he broke broncs for other people.
But we first leased a place and then later bought it. So then we sold it and bought another little place where I still live.
Where's that at now?
Just south of Ekalaka, 8 miles.
Just over Conger Hill and Cleveland Hill, the edge of the pines.
It's a real pretty little place.
That is pretty country down there.
Yes. So that's where I still live.
Were you affected by the fire a couple of years ago down there?
No.
The Brewer fire was on further south of you.
South and east of us.
You got the smoke, I imagine, though.
No, we didn't even get the smoke where I was. I don't know, it blew over us or went the other direction, but never did get smoky at home. So it didn't affect just the being anxious about it all the time, wondering when it was going to get it out. But
yeah, that went on for quite a while.
Yes, it did.
Well, Gladys, what about your husband then, Claude? Where did you run across him at?
Well, he grew up at Camp Crook, and he came back to Ridgeway to visit a sister, Margaret Dumont, who lived on one of the ranches there, Margaret Mosely. And she and her husband had separated, and she talked him into leasing her place and running it for her. And I was teaching school down the creek from there and met him. I guess Albion Little Dance. But we got acquainted there. We went together a couple of years, and then we're married. We lived on her place. It's now, your brother runs it, doesn't he?
Myron,
Myron,
nephew.
his nephew.
Uh-huh.
It was about 7 miles from where I grew up, from Dad's place. And when we left there, we run cattle. 34 government bought cattle, we dried out. But we kept 80 head. And then in 36, there wasn't any government buying. And we didn't have any hay. We had some old hay left over in 34. So we could winter those 80 head. But in 36, you couldn't winter anything but the milk cow. And so we sold out. And then later, we borrowed money and bought sheep and moved down to Marmarth, North Dakota. And then from there, we bought a ranch out here north of Baker, northeast. And I moved to Baker in 1942.
And what did you do in 1942 when you moved to Baker?
Well, we had the ranch out northeast of town, and we run sheep and cattle. But it was too small a place for both. And I started teaching again in 45.
What school was that at?
Wills Creek. I think it's closed now. That's by the North Booster Station up Trail Creek in that country. Pratt's and I can't remember who all live up in there now. So many of them have moved away. Gonzarowski's. But at the time, I had 2 families of Farrells and McKenzie kids and Gonzarowski's and Perry's. And then I started teaching, and I moved to town in the winter so the girls could go to school in town, and then I'd drive out to the Wyrick School and Conklin School and here around close, Fertile Prairie. We lived in town.
Well, you taught then out at the Fertile Prairie School?
Yes.
Out east of town?
Yes, it wasn't on the highway like it is now. It was south, down on the country road.
Did you ever teach in Baker itself?
Oh, yes.
What school was that?
I taught, well, I started in Washington, and then they divided grades and had all 5th and 6th in one school, and we were in the old high school, and it burned. And then we were out at the fairgrounds for a year or so until they got the Longfellow School built. And then I was teaching there when I retired.
What year did you start teaching school in Baker?
57.
Oh, 57. That was about the year I left. So you were really fortunate. I left in that year.
Well, you maybe wouldn't have been in my grade anyway. Maybe you were the lucky one.
And Gladys, your husband also served as a deputy sheriff here in Fallon County.
Yes. In 49, when I think it was Les Boggs died fighting a fire, heart attack.
Oh, that was Holmes.
Holmes. Holmes, that's right. I'm sorry. Anyway, John Caldwell was deputy, and he became sheriff. And he came out to the ranch and asked if my husband would consider being his deputy. And since we were having to move in for school anyway, my husband accepted the job. And we leased our place up. And then we decided to sell it. Losings now have it.
Oh, okay.
Roger Losing and his wife live on the place where we had. But I started teaching in here in 57, and then we had bought a house before that. I've lived there for 40 years in that same house.
Josephine, what kind of how large of a family did you have?
I had 9 children.
Quite a large one then.
Yes. I did. I've lost 3 of them, unfortunately. But I have 4 boys and 2 girls. And 2 of the girls one girl lives west of Ekaleka, about 15 miles. The other one lives in town. And I have a boy that lives in Houston, Texas. And 1 in Hewlett, Wyoming. 1 in Denver. And then there's the 1 boy that's at the ranch. He isn't there right now, but then he's the one that runs the ranch now.
And now you 2 went to school together then, so you've known each other all your lives, and you're also sisters-in-law, and sister-in-laws, I guess would be the proper term there. And here in the Baker area, in the Fallon County area, you see quite a few changes that have taken place over the years, I imagine, but the people remain basically the same, don't they?
Yes.
Pretty much. Well, Baker has changed a lot, though, in that time. I first came to Baker in 1925. We had a picnic, school picnic, and they took us in farm trucks out to Medicine Rocks. And then afternoon they brought us to Baker to see the train and to shop around or have treats. And I remember I thought it was such a desolate town, no trees. And there was a big tree down to the depot. I think it's the one down by the bowling alley yet.
Still there, that big cottonwood.
That big cottonwood. And there was a nice big cottonwood over north of the tracks. We were asked to go over there and see a lady, and it was in her yard. Otherwise, there were just little willows and scrub trees around the lake. But, and we went to the Chinese restaurant, and that was a surprise because we never saw any foreigners, you know. And the Chinese were different to us. And that was one of the highlights of the day, I guess.
That was 1925.
Yes.
What do you think of the train when you came to see it?
Well, we had seen trains. We'd go to Belle-Fourche. As Joe mentioned, their folks freighting. Well, we had freighted, too. And one year, I remember, Mother took us out of school. Some of us needed to see the dentist and things. And there were 5 wagons went. It took over a week to go to Belle-Fourche with team and horses. And there were 3 of those wagons had women and children with them. The others were hired men or something. And they'd go down and get their winter's groceries, usually a freight order from Sears Roebuck or Montgomery Ward, and so forth. But Belle-Fourche had been the town where we went to. And when we'd go to Belle-Fourche, we'd always like to go down and see the train come in and see the Negro porter put the steps down for people. But that was our town. It was Belle-Fourche at then.
That's the way we got our clothes, was the Sears and Roebuck or Montgomery Ward catalog. Every fall, I remember my mother sitting down and making out this huge order for these clothes for winter.
Overshoes, sweaters, jackets, underwear.
Everything.
Through the old Sears Roebuck catalog.
Yes.
When you ordered that, it didn't take all that long to get it, did it?
No, I don't think so.
I think about 2 weeks.
I suppose that was quite an event then when
the package came. Yes.
When the package came. That was like Christmas.
But those big ones, we would have come by freight to Belle-Fourche and then pick them up there in the fall.
Well, you ordered your appliances, you needed a new stove or whatever, it all came out of Sears Roebuck?
Pretty much, or Montgomery Ward. Chairs or kettles or the new mirror, different things.
Out of the warehouses in either Minneapolis or Chicago, I suppose. How about Ekalaka, Carter County? You mentioned you went to high school there in Ekalaka. How's the town of Ekalaka progressed?
Well, I don't live there now, so I can't say much about it. But it has a bigger school and
just build a new school.
More up to date, like all the towns have.
Was the old school in the same location, high school?
No, it was further east. I don't know what is over in that part of town now. But
There's really nothing there now. I guess there's a garage and a kind of an implement company or repair shop, I guess it's called.
At one time they had a dormitory in Ekalaka for country children coming in. And I think that old building still stands.
Yes.
There. It's kind of, as you go down the hill, if you went straight on into Ekalaka, it's at the corner. There's a gasoline station or something nearby.
But now most of the kids are bused into town.
Yeah. That eliminated the need for the dormitory.
Yes, big change.
Well, my dad carried mail for 8 years.
Oh, where was his route at?
From Ridgeway, where we lived, to Ekalaka. And he'd make 3 trips a week. He'd go in on Monday and back on Tuesday. And he drove a 2-seated buggy in the summertime with a top and with curtains that would let down to break the wind. And in the winter, he put that same cab type on the sled. and would haul passengers and pick up their mail along the way to take to Ekalaka, sometimes a grocery list or something, and then the next day he'd bring it back. He stayed at Rammy's boarding house in Ekalaka. It was about the middle of Main Street, I think, but they had kind of a hotel and cafe. And then later Rammy's moved to Baker, but I know that was a popular place. Everybody ate at Rammy's when they went to town.
I imagine mailman back in those days would have been kind of a welcome sight. That would have been probably some of the only company that people saw for a while.
Yes. First he'd heat big rocks, put his feet on to keep warm a ways. And then later he got a foot warmer that you put a charcoal. I didn't understand it then. I was a kid. They'd catch it on fire. It seemed like get red hot. Put it in this foot warmer. And then it had little air holes in the end. You could turn it up or down to make it hotter. And of course robes and quilts and things to cover their laps. Passengers as well as his.
I imagine some of those winters on a mail route would be awfully cold.
Some days it was pretty cold, all right, and those winds blowing.
And then the snow got so much deeper then than it does now, it seems like,
Well,
and no way to clear it off.
And the roads were not built up and graded up like they are now.
You know, it's kind of odd, or maybe it's not odd, but a lot of people I've talked to, they mentioned that in the winters back in the 20s and around in there, that there was so much more snow.
Oh, lots more. In 34, when my first baby was born, I had planned to go to Bursch. The roads closed, so I couldn't get there, so my dad was going to fix up a sled and bring me to Ekalaka. Well, the roads got so we couldn't even get there, and he decided to come a little ahead of time, so my first baby was born at home.
It wasn't really planned that way, though.
No, it wasn't. I had a registered nurse that lived up the creek about 12 miles or so when she came. But everything went fine.
So your first one was born right at home.
The first one was born at home, the second one was born at home, and the third one was born at home.
You figured the first one was all right, it was all right for the others too.
Well, there's really no place to go unless I came to Baker.
And probably would have been any different anyway.
No. So, but anyway.
Well, in those days, many of the babies were born at home.
Lots
and
of
there
them
was
were.
a midwife in the neighborhood, or then later this registered nurse that lived there. So people felt just about as secure staying at home as going to town. That 80 miles to Belfouche or 35 to Ekalaka. There was no hospital in Ekalaka at that time. There was a place where the woman took expectant mothers. Remember?
Well, they didn't have to worry about malpractice insurance either.
No, you sure didn't. And it cost just little or nothing to have a baby then compared to what it does now.
Then the families were a lot larger.
Yes.
You didn't have 2 or 3 kids in a family. You had 8 or 9 in a family, it seems like. Kind of grew their own workforce.
Yeah.
Well,
And the bigger ones helped take care of the little ones. They had a lot of fun then.
Well, when you were in high school, then you mentioned you went into a home, and so you moved away from it. I imagine that was quite a loss to the family too, then to lose their high school age girl.
Well, it probably was. And I know I got terribly lonesome. I had a little brother that was about 1.5 years old, and I really missed him because I practically took care of him when he was little.
Then you'd be, I imagine, like Christmas or something, you'd make it back home.
I'd get back home for Christmas, and that was about the only time I got home.
So you're probably happy to see summer come along. And
Oh, yes. And the first summer, I was offered a job. I think it was 50 cents a day that I would get, and I figured out how long it would take me to pay for a pair of shoes, so I went home.
And that was that.
That was that. But I did work for neighbors during the summer for little or nothing, but it was good experience for me.
Of course, people always talk about the Depression years in the mid-30s particularly. How do you recall them, each of you, Josephine?
Well, my husband and I worked for my dad, and then there was a fellow that had named Will Mead, and he made these electric plants, or just little wind-blown things that charged up batteries. And Alice and I was fortunate enough to work for him for $1 a day, and had our room and board. So that really helped us out.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, we herded sheep for my dad. So that's how we got by.
Well, Carter County has always been pretty much a sheep county, hasn't it?
Sheep and cattle, yes.
I think even today there are more sheep in Carter County than in any other county in Montana.
I think so.
My dad worked for sheep ranch when he first came up there.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of sheep, the Harrises.
Mm-hmm. And
Excuse me.
The train of thought derailed it.
I'm sorry.
yeah, I get it.
But Josephine and Gladys, and you two have known each other all your lives. There must be some good times you've had together that you can tell us about.
Well, we had lots of family gatherings, had picnics, and swimming. I don't know if Gladys was ever at our place, but we had a big swimming hole up there, and every night there was a bunch of kids up there. We had cousins that lived next to us, and we spent a lot of time in this water hole. I never learned to swim. I just dog paddled, but anyway, I could stay alive for a while.
You had to, huh?
Yes. And one day the folks were gone. We stayed in the water hole all day long. After that, my mouth was full of canker sores, and face blistered. But that swimming hole meant a lot to us. But I don't know. We went to the country dances and picnics and church.
Church was always a big thing.
Because they had picnic dinners.
Potluck dinner.
I remember the good old homemade ice cream that was brought, homemade cakes. It was a good get-together.
Well, then on Sundays when you had your church service, you mentioned like once a month, and you'd have the service, and then everybody stuck around, and you had a potluck dinner afterwards. And it was pretty much a whole day event then.
Yes, it was.
Sing fest in the afternoon.
Yeah. Well, a lot of visiting went on.
We had Sunday school every Sunday, but the minister came out from town once a month.
Well, you must have been kind of on a circuit or something.
Yes. He'd take different places on Sunday. He'd have church in Ecolaka early. That was after cars were more prominent. And he would drive out to these places. Sometimes I think we had potluck dinner and then church too.
Could have.
If you were last on his route that day, probably so. Well, Josephine and Gladys, is there anything else then that we can add while we have this opportunity today?
Not that I can think of, I guess. I'll probably think of things after I leave.
Well, in those days, you see, the roads were not gravel at all. It was just gumbo, and there's lots of times you just couldn't travel.
Because of the snow or the rain.
Snow or the rain and mud.
I remember when we walked to school in gumbo, and we'd walk, and our feet would get so heavy, so we'd stop and have to shake one foot off and then shake the other foot off. Then we'd walk some more and do the same thing. We walked 1.5 miles to school. And in the winter time, when it was real cold or stormy, our dad would bring the team and come and get us, take us home, or take us to school. But most of the time we walked.
Unless it was real bad weather.
Yes.
But did the teacher that you had live right at the schoolhouse?
No, my mother boarded the teacher most of the time.
Oh, so you had the teacher at your home all weekend, and that nice too.
And one teacher we had, she had this blue, they didn't, have the clothes to fix up and look pretty like the teachers do now, and this one teacher had this net dress, and she would wash it and it would be about to her knees, and then, but she'd wear it every day, And by the time she washed it again, it'd be down to her ankles. I remember that very well.
You just kept stretching a little
Yes.
bit more. Turned into a mesh dress.
It sure did. And then we boarded, my mother boarded one teacher, and she gave us kids music lessons for her board. Well, none of us learned to play, so she was just out, I guess.
And then Gladys, you lived in the same neighborhood there.
Yes. And then when I married, I lived close, within about 7 miles of where we had, until we later moved to, like I said, bought a place up here by Baker. But most of our life was, early life was spent on Box Elder.
Yeah.
In the same community.
Do you still get down into that neighborhood off and on?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Go down and
I go
visit?
down there. I have a brother that lives on the place that I grew up. And there's lots of times have things down there that I attend. So I go down there quite often.
Well, that's great. And Gladys, do you have some other things you'd like to add?
Well, I was thinking about those dry years in '36. People hardly believe it, but well, in '34 we had kept some cattle over, and then we didn't sell our yearlings. And in '36 we had 5 truckloads of steers to sell, and they brought us, I think, 3 cents a pound, or 3.5. About $20 a head.
Just about cost you to sell them.
Cost us almost that. No, it didn't either. Trucking wasn't as expensive as it is now.
Well, they trailed them too.
We trailed them a lot.
Yes.
Ellis and my husband and Goodmead and some of them trailed cattle in '34 to Belle Fourche. We always trailed cattle up until about 36 or 37 trucks began coming in. So. And then in '36 they trailed cattle again. But these steers, I think we wanted to keep a little fat on them and decided to have them trucked.
So you wear it off on the trail drive.
That's right. And, our husbands took cattle, and then there was people saying, if I'd known you was going, I had 10 head I'd like to send. So they got a second herd together and took it down. That was in '34. It was quite a dry trip.
34 was really just the beginning of kind of the dry years there, wasn't it?
That's right.
And then that lasted for about 3 or 4 years.
36, I think 35 wasn't so bad. We'd had so much snow, no matter that we got some hay.
But then 36
And 36
was the real bad
was
one.
real bad, and that's when my dad sold out. And different ranchers there sold out and left. Well, one time, about 1915, we had an invasion of people from Washington. The man had come out and he liked the country and went back and told them about it, and they all decided to come to Montana. And with a map, why, he plotted them out, homesteads joining each other. And we were out on the playground at school, and somebody said, there comes a wagon. Well, we was playing a game, and I think I was afraid that just trying to get them to look so they could steal some of your chips or something. And they didn't believe him. And then directly, well, there's another one. Pretty soon there's another one. Well, pretty soon all the kids were looking. And there were 15 wagons came over that hill and went on by the schoolhouse and camped for noon. And they had shipped their freight to Baker. Their horses and their cows and their wagons and their household goods. I guess it was an immigrant type thing. And then they would hook their livestock onto their wagons, and they trailed them and clear down 15 miles south of us. And before that, anybody'd say, where do you live? And well, we lived on Hawk's Nest Creek or near some butte. And those people would always tell you their section number. And they lived there for 3 or 4 years. They built homes and plowed up fields and so forth. But their houses weren't built for cold weather. And then dry weather began to hit. And gradually they all went back to Washington.
They all packed up and left, huh?
There's McCamishes came from Washington. They stayed. And there's McCamishes here. And there's McCamishes on the Carmack place on Box Elder yet. But there were homes, and they built a school, and they had a post office, and had ball games, and so forth. It was an addition to the community, but they didn't, many of them stay.
year was that?
About 1915.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
14
I
or 15.
I was born in 14, and
No,
I
you-
don't remember those.
Well, I was just a little kid at school. We were out on the playground when all these wagons come over the hill. And then after they left recess, we had to go down where they had camped. And they had built a fire and had potato peelings and things. And then we later learned that they were new settlers moving in.
Were they mainly Scottish descendants?
No, I don't think there was any special nationality among them.
They were just all from this area of...
From in Washington. They'd been neighbors and friends, and I think there were hard times back there. And they came out here for free land and start over.
And Josephine, Gladys, anything else that you can add?
I can't think of anything.
I guess I didn't tell much about my family. I raised 2 daughters. Anne married Henry Hagenstad. They live at Colstrip, and she's principal among the schools. Mary Lee is our county clerk and recorder here in the courthouse, Mary Lee Deeds. And I have 4 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. That's the extent of my family.
So you still have, like Mary Lee, right here in the Baker area?
Thank goodness, Mary Lee and Dawn. Of course, Dennis is in the Navy, probably heading for the high seas in a day or 2.
Probably going over to the Persian area?
Yes.
Well, Gladys Mosely and Josephine Bursch, we sure want to thank you for taking some time off your schedule and joining us on Those Were the Days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.